All right, good morning, everyone. It is Thursday morning, and today, hi, Heather from the Okanagan. Today, I'm going to be talking about big time space awakening leaps, and it's going to be a good one. So, hi, my name is Nancy Rebecca. I am a registered nurse, but I've been working as a full time psychic medium, healer, teacher for about 28 years now. And my main focus is to teach others like yourself how to develop intuitive accuracy, professional psychic abilities to choose that as a profession if you would like. So, hi, Rebecca Fountain. So, I see many of you coming in from YouTube. So, I'm just waiting to uh, see about others popping on. I always know there's a little bit of a delay. Yes, Rebecca, Sagittarian vibes. Lots of Sagittarius full moon stuff's going to be happening here June 4th. I will tell you, wow, this time frame that we're in is really messing with my head. And messing with my head and that kind of time space continuum of really thinking that something just happened yesterday and it happened a month ago, or thinking that I still have 3 weeks to prepare for something and the deadline's tomorrow. So lots and lots of things. And actually, I don't even know how to resolve it at this point, other than just keep going with the flow and, just what is it? Nemo, the movie Nemo, just keep swimming. So that's what we're going to be talking about. So, wow, we have a lot of people tuning in from YouTube today. That's fantastic. So, the topic today is big time space awakening leaps means all of humanity is going to be experiencing even larger expansions of awakening at a rapid pace. Now, you will have the recording of this later. You may want to get a piece of paper and pen just to kind of write down some things to help you remember after this call, because we're going to be probably doing a little jumping around as you're trying to jumping around timelines, universal timelines, because as I talk, it's going to probably trigger some of your memories where you remember jumping timelines, or you remember an event that happened differently than maybe the people around you remembered it. So I'm going to explain that a little bit more as well. So again, oh, hi, Don and Jennifer from Facebook. So let's get this party started. I hope you all can hear me okay. So, according to Pam Gregory, on June 3rd or June 4th, depending on where you are in the world, this full moon in Sagittarius will illuminate your greater connections to the galactic core of the universe. So there's going to be a lot of conversation about the galactic core and the great attractor. If you are not on my mailing list, you want to really go to intuitivemind.org. You want to sign up for an intuitive style questionnaire to get on my mailing list, because I'm sending out my blog today about the June frequency forecast, where I talk a lot more about the great attractor and the galactic core, just to give you little samplers about what's going on. June 3rd, independence, freedom, enthusiasm. The full moon in Sagittarius really has us in that kind of otherworldly, other kind of galactic space that we, at least probably in the last 28 years, I haven't ever experienced before, or I don't remember experiencing it before. You have the greatest potential right now to leap over into other dimensions, other universes. So I'm going to explain that more. And higher states of knowledge, as well as enhanced dreaming, enhanced lucid dreaming, because your consciousness is making leaps into higher states of consciousness, and then bringing that information back to the third dimension. So, yep, there's a whole lot of leaping going on here. You just might find, like, for example, that you are the one that is staying in the same place in life, and all of your friends have kind of moved on. They're doing other things, and yet your life has stayed the same. This is an example. you're still in the same place as a kid, and then suddenly you move to a more suitable dimension for you and your dreams. You just met, maybe you were meant to remain back while the others moved forward, so that when you did make that leap, they would be there to support you. Or maybe, and you stayed there because you had pieces that you needed to pick up in that universal dimension before you could move on to the new dimension. Or maybe you agreed for all of your friends that you would stay back and resolve everyone's issues and then suddenly make that leap. So there's a lot going on here. Hi, good morning. Good morning, everyone. It's great to see you. So you can jump. Now, you do jump timelines all the time. So all the time. Everyone does it, not just the spiritually evolved. Even those in the most unconscious states jump timelines all the time. So let me give you an example of this. So when you're sitting there and suddenly you remember, or you kind of get triggered, or you go back and you'll remember when you were 3 years old sitting on the floor playing with one of those spinning tops. Do you remember those where you plunge it and it go faster and faster and faster, and then you'd let it go and the top would spin on its own? So maybe you're just having that kind of memory. You literally are jumping timelines to the past. You're jumping to the past. If you are kind of dreaming about, I'd like to go to nursing school, and you're imagining being a nurse, and you're imagining which university you want to go to, you are making those leaps, those jumping leaps into the future to kind of feel it out, to see and sense if that's what you really want before you apply for nursing school to move forward. So we are constantly checking out the past. We are constantly checking out the future. Now, my little nursey hat here is going to say, as I'm aware as a nurse, but also as a psychic healer, reader, is that if you have the majority of your ethereal essence that's time jumped into the past, you're going to have depressive leanings. You're going to tend to be more on the depressed side as you're trying to live your life. If you are always future tripping, dreaming about a better future for yourself, dreaming about a better relationship, dreaming about a better job, you're not satisfied with where you are. You have a hard time. Maybe your life is just really painful in this moment. You want to just dreaming is kind of this escapism, but your ethereal light is going into the future and you're living there. So it can cause a lot of anxiety in your body. So if you're future tripping, anxiety, past tripping, depression. So we're going to do a little meditation at the end of the talk here, where we're going to really pull our energies in this present moment. Is that going to stop you from multiple outcomes, multiple universes? No, but you're not going to be a watered down version of yourself, and you'll be able to make the best choices for yourself as well. Okay. And it's interesting, like I wrote down on my notes, pages 1, 2, 3, 4, 6. And I was like, well, that's weird. Why did I leap over 5? So in one of those dimensions, I will have 6 pages. In this dimension, in this universal timeline and outcome, I have 5 pages. So believe me, after this call, I'm going to go and write some more to make sure that I fill into that 6th page to fulfill that universal timeline. And Spirit will provide me the information to do that. So let's just talk a little bit more about these kind of timeline jumps. So often your 3D human physical system is not ready to integrate higher knowledge from other dimensions. So you can leave your reeling states of confusion as you know it, sensing in the 3D world, you can now make that leap into other places that you want to be. You can dream about standing on a stage, inspiring 10,000 people. But then you come back to this world where your human body is, where it's like, yeah, you haven't even really gotten up in front of a classroom of 20 people yet. So that timeline, that outcome is, it exists for you, but you physically haven't done the footwork that it might take to get you ready to stand in front of 10,000 people. That you want to start kind of gearing up for what you can do in the here and now. Your spirit is not allowed to jump higher than your physical body can handle. And this is why in my programs, the students will tell you, we talk all about the body, including your body. You are creating a light body. And why? Why is your spirit helping you to have experiences to create a lighter frequency body so that you can access those higher frequency universal timelines that have the outcomes that you dream and that you desire? Imagine if every single one of your decisions, that you have 3 different versions of outcome results for you to choose from. This is a real thing. So what if you, for every decision that you make, you have 3 potential outcomes of that decision to choose from? And so that's why you've heard me talk about in the past that intention is action follows thought. Action follows thought. If you have a negative thought, oh, I'm never going to be able to stand in front of 10,000 people and talk. That is just never going to happen. That's not me. I'm too shy. I'm too this. I'm too that. Then you're going to remain on that timeline that doesn't allow for an outcome for you to develop at that higher dream state. It allows you to stay at that outcome that you're most comfortable in. So let's say, that negative, we'll say that kind of limiting vibe. I won't say a negative vibe because it just is what it is, but it's a limiting vibe. Then that's the timeline choice that you're going to make. So how many of you have heard of the Mandela effect? So write in the comments section if you've heard of the Mandela effect. It's very similar, or maybe you've heard of the matrix effect, where that's a little different, where it's almost like, we're kind of being guided by the matrix. And there's 2 different matrices. And what is it, the movie The Matrix? Are you taking the red pill or are you taking the blue pill? And so, yeah, all of those can be kind of true on some level. It just depends on which universal timeline you happen to be creating from. So the Mandela effect was really first spoken about by, I only got her last name, I think it's Broom, hope that I remember that right, but it's Broom. And this woman remembered that Nelson Mandela, who was the president in South Africa, that he died when he was in prison. So when she found out that he was still alive several years later, she couldn't believe it because her mind had told her that he had died. As a matter of fact, she was so certain that he had died that she remembered watching the funeral and the procession of the funeral. She remembered his wife coming on and grieving and talking about the loss while he was in prison, only to find out that in reality, he didn't die. He went on to become the president of South Africa. But the reason why she wrote about it is because many people in the world had that same memory. So that Mandela effect really kind of talks about which dimensions. So let's say there's 3 options for Nelson Mandela, and one of those options, he doesn't live, he dies in prison. So that's one outcome. And then there may be another, where he gets out, but he lives peacefully with his family. And then there's the one where he becomes president. So it just depends on what that universal level is, that path that he has chosen, that his spirit has chosen, or maybe was chosen for him. So when you bring it all back to yourself, what are the timelines that you are choosing? So, okay. But what happened was there was another inmate that did die in prison who was a very good friend of Nelson Mandela. And there was a funeral. And so they said, you can flip those memories and apply it to Nelson Mandela rather than his friend. And that's kind of a logical mistake that can happen, right? But these things can happen all the time. So what do I want to say here? I remember once I had a friend. I'm going to tell you a few stories that will kind of blow your mind a little bit. But I remember once I had a friend who said, Nancy, it's hard for me to be friends with you. And I said, oh, really? Why? And she said, because you always, when we're talking, you always see my highest potential. And it's stressful for me because I'm not there and I might not ever get there. And then when I'm around you, I feel like I have to rise up to this frequency of where I have the potential to be, not where I am. That really told me a lot, because what it told me is when I'm working with my friends or talking to my friends or my family or working with students or clients, that I can be seeing them through the lens that's of another universal timeline, another kind of multi-dimension, where I can see that great potential that they have, or where they're going, like they're going to write a book. How many of you have had a psychic reading where you've been told you're going to write a book? So it's like, but that book never happens, because that you haven't ever made that leap to that dimension. So you may not be able to create and manifest that book from the dimensional choice that you're living from now. So we are leaping to the past, we're leaping to the future, but we're also, in a non-linear way, we are leaping to high dimensions, we are leaping to low dimensions, and of those frequencies, there are different outcomes. So this is why I say, as psychics, making predictions for your life depends on the timeline the psychic is looking at. This is why I teach in my programs, teach you how to be intuitive, how to have accurate intuition for your own life, have accurate psychic abilities, your ability to connect with your higher self, your higher wise self, so that you can see and make choices about the direction you're going, not the choice of going where a psychic says you're going. Because what happens is, let's say, I remember once this one woman said, can you tell me if I'll ever get married and how many kids I'm going to have? And I told her, I don't read like that, because I don't have to live with the outcome of what I say. You have to live with that outcome. So, but what I will do for you is I'm going to look to see what blocks you from knowing and having the ability to dream for your own life. So be careful when you're asking your friends for their opinion, because remember, they're looking through the lens of whatever timeline they are looking through. It may not be that universal dimension that you are moving to. Okay, let's see. Okay, I'm not going to go on about that. I'll write about it in my blog. Okay, let me tell you a story. Now, for me to tell this story in a really juicy, awesome way, it would take about 30 minutes. So I'm going to nutshell it for you. So you're just going to have to go with me. All right. I'm a registered nurse. I'm working in the intensive care unit. And we have very, very sick patients. And it's called an acute center, because if you have an emergency and you come to the emergency room and you come to the ICU or CCU, intensive care unit, you're to buy yourself a bed in one of those units, you're really sick. You've got potential for life or death. And so we're going to help treat you quickly to get you back on the recovery path. So that's the ICU. So here I am one day as a nurse, I'm working there, and I smelled paint And it wasn't just a paint smell, it was like a nose hair burning paint smell. It was an eye watering paint smell where I kept rubbing my eyes. And it was like I was coughing. It was so strong. So I said to my fellow nurses, "Where's that paint smell coming from?" And they said to me, "What paint smell? We don't smell anything." And I'm like, "How is that possible for you not to smell something? It is so strong." I said, "We don't smell anything." So I assumed something's wrong with their smeller. So I called the switchboard. I said, "Is there anyone who's painting in the hospital?" So you have to remember, our patients are really compromised. They're on ventilators, they're on oxygen. They cannot have a strong paint smell. It'll affect their chances of life or death. So I'm pretty certain there's something wrong. Switchboard said, "Not that I know of." I called security. I called maintenance. I went into the stairwell. I ran up and down several stairs, several floors to see if maybe they were working on one of the units at one of the lower floors. All right, you've got the picture, right? 2 hours, 2 hours, I was driving myself crazy. And I even shut the doors to the unit where we were in to see if I could block out the smell to protect our patients. Now, my fellow nurses were like, "I am so sorry, Nancy, but none of us smell this." Okay. Now, what happens in an intensive care unit, if you have an empty bed, it's soon going to be filled with somebody else. So we get the call and they said, "Nancy, you've got a patient that's coming up from the emergency room. She's really, really sick. She has a blood sugar of like 1200. Normal's like 80 to 120. It's about 1200. She's halfway in a coma. We need you to get that room ready to get her in." So I asked the other nurses to get that room ready. I'm going to run to the pharmacy to get the insulin drip that she's going to need and whatever else. And so right away, I grab all that stuff. The IV therapist is there getting set up. I come running back into the room and I stop because I got hit with that paint smell. The woman's in the bed. I've got the IV bags in my hand. The husband's sitting in the chair and he said, "I am so sorry to bring in this strong paint smell. I paint cars for a living and I didn't have time to change as I rushed over here to be with my wife." 2 hours later, I smelled his paint 2 hours before he actually arrived. Is that not trippy or what? And then the other nurses, they just looked at me like, "What the heck is going on?" And so what I realized was that the universal timeline was setting up the event 2 hours before it happened. Now, think about your own life and you're thinking you're going to make a choice. I mean, it changed how I look at life forever. And I think, okay, after this call today, I'm going to do ABC. Like I'm creating the idea. And I'm not. It was already, that event was already created. My choice to run to the pharmacy or the grocery store was already created 2 hours before I stepped into it. All right, trippy, right? All right, I have another trippy one. Working at the hospital. And this all has to do with time space stuff. The reason why I'm mentioning this is because I've had this ability for a long time, like years and years and years. It was unusual for other people to have these events. Now, not unusual at all. You all are going to be experiencing this if you haven't already experienced this. All right, let me tell you another story. I worked a long stretch in this particular department. I was picking up overtime and I was having long days and it was super busy and we were short of nurses, you know the story. So in this unit, I was taking care of this man who had had a stroke on the right side of his body. So remember, it's acute care. He'll probably stay with us about 2 to 3 days until we can transfer him to another floor or a rehabilitation unit. All right, so I've cared for him for a couple of days. He leaves, I get a call, ring, ring, ring. We have another patient for that room. Cool, I'll get it ready. Next thing you know, okay, I'm getting report. We have a woman. She's just had a stroke on the right side of her body. She's coming up to you now. Okay, no problem. Didn't connect the dots. I didn't connect the dots. She comes in, she's there for a couple days. And then I go home, I have a day off, I come back to that same unit. It's a whole different person in that same room who has a stroke on the right side of the body. 3 different people came into that room with strokes. What is the likelihood of that happening? Like a gazillion, 1 in a gazillion chance of that happening. So here's my mind. I go, okay, I think that the energetic setup in that room is completely set up to receive people who've had strokes on the right side of their body. So what if I change the energy of that room? So now this other person leaves. I go into the room, I close the door because my fellow nurses already think I'm a nut job. All I did was start calling in golden healing light to dissolve old energy patterns, dissolve the old illness of the right-sided stroke, to dissolve it. So now I'm waiting to see what's going to happen. Can you imagine me being your nurse? Oh my God. Okay, so what happened was, ring, ring, ring. Nancy, you have a patient coming into that room. And I said, okay, so who's coming in? And they said, we have a 23-year-old young woman who fell and had an accident and hit her head, and she's unconscious. And it was like, no, she didn't hit her head. Anyway, something was dramatically different than a stroke. And a different age. She wasn't an older person. Like, it dramatically changed who was going to be coming into that room. Now, the reason why I share this with you, that was a life-changing moment for me. Why? Because I knew I could change the universal dimension that I was co-creating in by changing the energy. So when you take classes with me, we're moving energy all the time. I'm teaching you how to move energy so that you can create and set up the universal outcomes that you want. So, okay, I've gone through that. So here I was, this can be very disorienting, and this is what's happening to you right now. You can feel very disoriented and very kind of out of sorts, but it's just because you are literally jumping timelines right now as the whole frequency of the earth is rising. As a healer, you can help clear the energy that's moving towards the outcome, allowing you to have a different outcome. Let's talk about healers. So here's this other quick story. I was a hospice nurse. I get called by the family. They said, our mother is not doing well. And so I rushed over there first thing in the morning, and she's been having nightmares all night. She thinks she's being attacked by, evil spirits. It's a lot of dark shadows in the room, and she wasn't doing well, and she was getting close to death. So what I did is I just started clearing her energy field. So as a healer, I just started clearing her energy field. I started changing the frequency of her aura. I started changing the frequency of her chakras just by balancing and healing, just by clearing out any trauma or clearing out the fear. Next thing you know, suddenly she starts saying, oh, the shadows are leaving and the angels are coming in. The shadows are leaving, the angels are coming in. So her whole entire experience in that kind of pathway towards her taking her last breath completely changed for her. And the only thing I did was clear some of that heavier, denser energy out of her aura. So I'm going to be a big promoter right here. Don't waste a lot of time. Get on somebody's table. Reiki, healing touch, whatever, quantum healing, whatever type of healer you want to go and have the energy shifted so it's available for you to shift in another timeline. So things are about ready to get pretty trippy inside and out. Now, this stuff's been happening forever. It's been happening forever. But you are now going to start experiencing it for yourself. What can interfere with your ability to choose clear timelines for yourself any addictive aspect of yourself, drugs, alcohol, food, sex, gambling, video games, whatever, the addiction is going to choose the universal dimension for you to reside in so that the addiction can still survive. So your addiction is not going to allow you to move to a universal dimension where that addiction does not exist. Can you take that in? That's why when someone's going through recovery, it's really hard because they're in that dimension where the addiction exists. And then eventually, if they can really heal themselves enough that if they can shift into that other dimension where the addiction doesn't exist, then it's a whole lot easier, for them. But that's not an easy leap. But we did on a Free Healing Friday, we had this young man who was a heroin addict. He started coming in once a month, Free Healing Friday. He'd been through rehab a lot of times. And then he was cleared out of his field. He was able to shift and leave those addictions behind. I'm oversimplifying it. It was hard work for him. It still took him about a year and a half. And he can still think of the addiction as a distant thought, not as this consuming monster that it was. But one of the things that really struck me, I was thinking about this the other day, was like, wow, I used to really crave donuts. So what was that? Apple fritters are my favorite. Oh my God. I had to have an apple fritter at least once a week. So I used to crave these donuts. I might want fast food, or you might want fast food. But then that's on that dimension that you're on, that you're going to have those cravings for those foods. How many of you have been spiritually developing and you look, but you can't even eat the same foods? It's because you're in a different dimension. So the other day, Yvonne was making dinner. It was like, oh my God, she made this huge salad. And it was like, wow, that salad looks amazing. I never would have said that in the donut universe. I never would have said that. So anyway, I'm trying to make this light so you don't trip out. You're going to be really normal. How about relationships? If you wish to no longer be in a relationship, you can dream of being anywhere else other than being in that relationship. Your energy is going to be on that other universal plane. You're not going to be able to work out the problems in that relationship. If you are in two different dimensions and you don't want to come back to that other dimension, it's going to be challenging to work on that relationship. So there's a lot here. So sparked, you will begin to start seeing the Mandela effect everywhere. So start paying attention. All right, we're going to do a quick, hey, I got all that in 33 minutes. I must have jumped a timeline that lets me be on time. That's so awesome. So we're going to do a quick little timeline meditation, and you can play with it and then just get on my mailing list. I'll be writing this up in much greater detail as I add page 6, and then we'll make sure and you get a copy of that. So let's bring our energy from the past and the future to the present. So go ahead and close your eyes and turn within. Talk sweetly to your body, because as your spirit is flipping to the past and the future, to the 36th dimension, to the 5th dimension, from one timeline to another timeline, your little 3D human body remains right here, confused as all get out, trying to figure out what you're doing. So talk to your body very sweetly right now. Nice. Very nice. Now, say hello, good morning, good afternoon, or evening to your spirit. Let your spirit know what you want to do. It's like, wow, if I'm kind of all over the place, I have a name for my higher self, my wise self. So if you have a name, you just say, hey, if my focus consciousness is all over the place in multiple dimensions in the past and the future, it is my intention right now to move it all into this present moment where I am. Remember, action follows thought. Ah, there, your spirit's already starting to bring you the comfort of your own soul back from the past, the future, other dimensions. Nice. Remind yourself of how old you are right now and remind yourself of what today's date is, because it will be different for those who are listening to the recording. Now, go ahead and ground yourself to the center of the earth. Remember, we always want to help ground our physical body. We want to ground our spirit into our body, because if your spirit's spread out 100 different places, you're watered down. Everything about you is the watered version of who you are. So let's bring all those bits right into this present moment and ground yourself to the center of the earth and create another playful imaginative image to wrap around the magnetic core at the center of the earth to help really stabilize you physically, emotionally, mentally, and spiritually. Set your intention that you're going to drop any energy that's in your energy field that does not, that wants you to avoid being present in your life. Whatever energies that cause you to want to avoid being fully present in the here and now in your life, you're just going to go ahead and drop those old memories, old belief systems, stuck behaviors. You don't have to know what it is. Just said, hey, I really need right now during this great time of change, I need to be present in my life. Anything that blocks me from that, you got to go and just let it drain right down your grounding. Nice. There's a lot more you can dump. Just let it go. Remember, you're changing the frequency of the room that you're in. You're changing the frequency of your auric field that your human body resides in. Remember that, from apple fritters to salads. Okay, now just imagine, you can imagine like pulling a blanket from the past, a blanket of energy. You can imagine this beautiful rainbow octopus that has tentacles way in the past. Whatever you want to imagine, you're pulling all this energy, you're setting the intention that if you've left any of your essence in past memories or past lives or past ancestral experiences, you're calling it all back to be in this present moment with you now. Your answers are not in the past. Your answers are in the present. That's a good start. So now that same intention for the future, you can play with images, you can play with sound or feeling or knowing, but say, hey, my answers, as much as I'd love for them to be in the future, are not in the future. All my answers for what I need are right here in this present moment. So if I've got any of my essence future tripping right now, I'm calling it all back to me to be in this present moment now. And remind yourself of today's date and your age. All right, that's a good start. We're going to do one more. Set your intention that if my ethereal spiritual soul essence is in another dimension, another timeline that is beyond my abilities, my current abilities, it's far beyond my potential abilities, I call my essence back to me now. So you hear, I'm not saying call it all back from all dimensions, just the ones that just might not be your business, like being on the planet Sirius or being in another galaxy. It's like, nope, my business is here on Earth. And then just call all your essence. If it's beyond my scope of human practice, I call it back to me now. Remind yourself today's date. Remind yourself of your current age. All right. It's a good start. It's a really good start. So whenever you're ready, go ahead and open your eyes, look around the room that you're in, remind yourself of where you live, kind of what dimension that you're in. And as you're coming back, I just want to remind you that how can you start to be in charge of kind of that dimensional timeline leaping is to be really strong in your dreams and your desires, and that know that every single choice that you make dictates which timeline you're going to be on. Okay, so if you say it's a limiting belief, it's a limiting statement, it's a limiting thought, wow, I really want to write a book, but that's never going to happen, then your spirit will help you to remain on that universal dimension where writing a book is never going to happen. So it's hard work. This is not easy, but intention is everything. And ask your spirit, say, hey, I might be limiting in my beliefs once in a while. Can you help me remember to not limit myself? So as you walk out your door today or you're staying at home, the next thought you're going to have, you want to have it be in alignment with the universal timeline that you want to be on. Because remember, if your spirit is literally creating the next 2 hours ahead of you, what do you want that to look like? So that's a big thing. I'm going to say one other thing. I did do some reading on quantum physics. I went to the NASA website, and did you know that time here on Earth is different than the time on the satellites? That the satellites, that time is different than the time here on Earth. So yes, you can time travel. So look up the NASA site, look up timelines, time jumping, look up, what do they call it? Traveling to the future or the past. So look that up. Now, I'm just going to mention one other thing, and this is the summer solstice event that's coming up. It's going to be here in just, gosh, on the 18th. So that's only a couple of weeks away. This whole summer solstice has the biggest galactic feel to it that I have ever experienced in my entire career. And so, yeah, you definitely want to be there. There are 3 choices. You can get the VIP choice where we're going to have little mini readings every day, and we're going to meet on the Saturday before the Sunday event. You can order and be live for the Sunday event or simply the recording. So go click the link here below and register today. It's going to be really, really, really good. So I hope you love the talk. It gives you a lot to digest, but we are now together 50 minutes. So I'm going to let you all go, get on with your day, and yeah, enjoy. This is a great time to be living. Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.